Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to thank you all for coming out to City Hall today to get involved in our civic engagement event of helping people with disabilities get engaged in local government. I'm Kristen McCosh, the Disability Commissioner here at City Hall. I have the pleasure of working for Mayor Walsh and our Human Services Cabinet Chief, Felix Arroyo. They'll be addressing you in a moment, but I really just wanted to emphasize my appreciation for the fact that you came out today. I know it's not always easy for people with disabilities to get out and about. We have barriers with transportation and healthcare and things like that. And sometimes City Hall isn't always the easiest or friendliest place to visit. But we've made a lot of improvements, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But without further ado, I would like to turn the microphone over to my boss, the wonderful Chief of Health and Human Services, Felix Arroyo.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. First, I want to make some acknowledgments from some key partners that we have for HHS and specifically for our Disabilities Commission. But I just want to give a huge shout out for a woman who I consider to be just a tremendous rock star, a real champion on the issues for persons living with disability. I would say that myself and the mayor, as well as the rest of the team, will always have our heart there when it comes to the issue of people living with disabilities. Kristen makes sure that our brain there is as well. She really is the city's expert, and has many of you know what the transformation that has been since Kristen's taken over, and I know that too, and so does the mayor. So I just want to give Kristen a real acknowledgement. I'd like to just recognize some of the partners that we have in government who are in the room today who help us do our work and who also work for you, right? While the Disability Commission specializes in the issues of people living with disabilities, in the end, we are all public servants. We serve the public, and today, as part of Civic Engagement Day, it's a good day to stress. You don't just have the Disabilities Commission to reach out to, but in fact, you have the entire city of Boston to reach out to, because every single one of us is able to feed our families because you pay our salaries. So here we go. One is my really good friend and the Chief of Civic Engagement, Jerome Smith, is here with us today. First time I get to say it, but the I think acting director of the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, Katie's here today. Someone who, like me, once served on the city council, and this was a room we used to have meetings on, and who, like me, has not looked back since, and that's the clerk, Maureen Feeney. I'm really excited to say that Dion Irish is here. He's fairly newly appointed the head of the Elections Commission, but the reason he was chosen is because the mayor wanted someone who absolutely thought that part of the job was not just running elections, but making sure that it was as easy as possible for the residents of Boston to be able to cast their vote so that their voice can be heard. He couldn't have found a better person than Dion, and that's really what his focus has been, and my good friend, Dion Irish. And he's here to deal with it, but I just want you to know that the mayor is very aware that there are obstacles in the lives of those living with disabilities around access to voting, and we will do everything we can to remove as many of those obstacles as possible, and it does not really matter to us who you vote for. We just want you to be able to exercise your right to vote. And so we're going to do everything we can, and that's why Dion's here to learn and to hear about what we can do to make sure that that happens. I also want to give a shout out to someone who's become a fast friend, but really just a strong leader in our city. And she serves as the president of the city council, and that's our friend, Michelle Wu. And let me introduce the man that everybody here knows. You know him as your mayor. I know him as both my mayor, my boss, my friend, someone who's been a mentor of mine for a very long time. But the most important thing that you should know is that he wakes up and truly thinks every day, how does he make this city work better for those that it may not be currently working for? He thinks about how do we remove obstacles in people's lives? How do we make sure You know, you hear him talk a lot about we need people to have second and third and fourth chances. He's also talking about making sure people have an honest and real first chance. And that's what his entire administration's focus has been on. So even when you agree or don't agree with what he's doing, you can always trace it back to his desire to make Boston work for everybody. And that's why I'm really proud to call him our mayor, and that's my friend Marty Walsh.
Thank you very much, Felix, and thank you for all the work that you do for us in the city as well. Commissioner McCosh, thank you for really leading the way as far as I think a city goes when it comes to people with disabilities. And Kristen is a friend, and she's somebody who I deeply respect and love her work. So I want to thank her for all the great things she has done. I know that a lot of the people have been mentioned already, but I want to thank Council President Michelle Wu for her great work as well, and her partnership, and all the Boston City Council, because as we think about what we're talking about today, this is a partnership. And all the folks that were mentioned, including Council President Wu and the entire council, and you know, Dion Irish from the Elections Department, Jerome Smith from Civic Engagement, Maureen Feeney from the Clerk's Office, Katie King, the Director of Intergovernmental Relations, and if I missed you, I apologize. We're here to help. We're here to make sure that we smash down any obstacles there are, particularly when it comes to engagement. I was at an event last night. It's Hub Week in Boston. It's this event put on, and they were talking about voting, and they were just having a dialogue, a conversation around should people get paid to vote? It wasn't proposed, it was just an idea. And they asked me the question, and my answer was absolutely not. It's our freedom and our right for a vote, to cast a vote, but I think it's also our civic duty to cast a vote. And I feel that if we start paying people to vote, is their vote really worth it? Because they're not going out for the right reason to vote for true change or support of someone. They're going out because they're getting paid. And many of you in this room go out to vote every single election you can. And it's important for us that we continue that. It's important that we also help educate people and let people know that we're doing everything we possibly can to make it easier for people to go vote, to make sure that all of our locations are handicap accessible, to make sure that all our people are registered to vote. Somebody shouldn't not vote just because they say, okay, it's not easy for me to vote. We have to make it as easy as possible. We have to do a lot more work around civic engagement. We have to make sure that all of the facilities that we have, and when I say we, the city has, are accessible to all. And that the folks that are working in those locations understand some challenges people have. And some of the challenges we have aren't disabilities. Some of the challenges we have are people from other countries, that English is not their first language. And when they get a ballot, they may not understand the ballot process. Some folks, every year, we have thousands of people that become citizens to this great state, this great country, but to this great state and part of this city. And it's when their first time going to vote, it's intimidating for people. I can tell you a story of my mother, who comes from Ireland, who speaks English, became a citizen only about 20 years ago. And the first time she voted, she got really nervous in the voting booth because she wasn't exactly sure how to vote. And back then it was the little levers you pull down. And you know, and she went in and voted, and she asked for help. I happened to be next to her. She asked me for help. And it is intimidating. And I think that what today's all about is making it that it's not intimidating for anyone for any reason that it potentially be intimidating for. I want to also let everyone understand how to register to vote today and what early vote means. Early vote in Boston and Massachusetts is new this year. So we're going to be able to go, you're going to be able to go and vote in 9 locations throughout the city of Boston, one being in this building, early. Florida has it, and we all kind of know the Florida model because we start watching it in Florida, the early vote. They start talking about it probably in another week or so. But Massachusetts is going to have it. We're going to have it here in Boston. And when we have the conversation about it, Dion Irish and President Wu and a bunch of other people came in and said, okay, how many locations are we going to have? And you know, it was our right to have, I believe, 2 locations in the entire city, but what we decided to do was break those locations down by city council district. So we'll have 1 in every single city council district, so we'll have 9 around the entire city of Boston. And Dion's office and many of the staff is here from the elections department are working to learn the process, but also make sure the process is accessible to everybody. In Boston, we're committed to making sure that we break down barriers, all barriers, for people with disabilities. We're going to continue to, side note, we're going to continue to, and Kristen spoke about this a minute ago, the commissioner, about making sure that our handicap ramps are fully accessible. We're going to make sure that our council is fully accessible. We're going to make sure that the mayor's office is fully accessible. We're going to make sure that anybody, this is not my building. This is not Michelle's building. This is your building. This is the people of Boston's building. And we should make sure that anyone from Boston that wants to come into this building should be able to come into this building anytime and access any office in it. And that's what we're going to continue to do to make sure that we're fully accessible. We're upgrading our communication. Our communication access policy website is up and running. We're changing a lot of different things. It's important for you to understand that as elected officials and as city government employees, we all work for you. And we want to make sure that you take this message out to the street and talk to your friends and let people know that the city government truly is an inclusive government for all people. So we need your help on these issues, and we need your help in passing the word out to the community, because it is so important. We can touch only so many people. There's press here today, so that some people will watch the press, but a lot of people don't watch TV or might not see the paper, and their lives are too busy. So we're asking you to take this information out to the street, and it's an honor. God bless you. It's an honor for me to be here today. I have no idea if I'm bringing somebody up. Who's speaking? Am I bringing? So I have the honor of bringing the next speaker to the microphone. Somebody who I met 4 years ago, who has done an incredible job as not just the city council, but as the president of the city council. And when we have our meetings, we meet every couple of weeks, and when we have our meetings, the meetings always begin and end with, how do we help someone? And that's what we're going to continue to do as a government, because that's what our responsibility is. So I'd like to bring up to you the president of the Boston City Council, President Michelle Wu.
Hello everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be here, because for each one of you that are here in, as the mayor said, your building, I know you're taking back the message of the services available, the programs available back to so many others. And so we thank you for being the leaders and representatives and investing the time, because it's difficult to find it. Everyone has a lot going on. I wanted just to be here today to say thank you on behalf of all of my colleagues on the City Council, to the mayor, to our chiefs and leaders from across the administration. It's been a real pleasure to be in this building, knowing that across the board, the leadership is committed to making this a city for everyone and a city government for everyone. We were so incredibly thrilled to see Mayor Walsh sign the Communications Access Ordinance. Was it just last weekend? Time's flying by. 2 weekends ago, where Boston put on paper its commitment to having fully accessible city services for residents who don't speak English as a first language and for residents with a communications disability. We are still doing a lot of work here, and certainly the ordinance is just a major step and not an end point, but the council is striving every day to be better at our communications and making sure we are engaging with residents as much as possible and as accessibly as possible. So, for example, last term, then Council President Linehan made sure that we installed a hearing loop in the City Council chamber, so that everybody with a hearing aid or audio disability would be able to, auditory disability would be able to fully listen and participate to the proceedings in the chamber. We're making sure that our captioning for our City Council broadcasts happens with each and every meeting, and we have a lot more to do. I want to give another shout out to a department that I don't see represented in this room, but has been doing so much, which is Do It. So Chief Yasha Franklin Hodge and his team have been amazing about converting everything, all of the documents to screen reader accessible PDFs instead of just the screenshots. And again, a lot more work to do, but they are making sure that Boston will be at the forefront of accessibility in every way possible. So thank you again for taking the time to be here today. We welcome you anytime to come here and participate in our city council meetings, our hearings, our working sessions. We want to hear from you, and we want to make sure that everybody's voice is reflected in our policies. And we'll, again, continue to put everything on the website as well, so that even if you can't be here in person, you'll be able to follow along from home and send us your feedback that way. Thank you so much. Congratulations. And now it is my honor to introduce someone who I see as a role model, who is a mentor, who preceded me in my role as a counselor and as council president, and now serves the entire city still as clerk of the city, Maureen Feeney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, so many of you, we've seen you in the council chamber over the years and participating, but I really want to recognize Kristen for really going that extra mile. And of course, that is the hallmark of the Walsh administration. So you might ask, what are we doing here? Well, although many come to us because they're filing a claim against the city or they're opening a new business, what I wanted to share with you today is the fact that we have over 80 boards and commissions in the city of Boston. And over the last couple of years, based on the work that Mayor Walsh did in encouraging everyone to make everything accessible, our wonderful team, and I'd like to give a shout out to Trish Finnegan and her team, who have just been extraordinary in putting all of these boards and commissions online. And not only that, but also the enabling legislation that tells you what types of members they may need on that board and commission. And I can say that I know this room is filled with many talented, gifted people. And we hope that as we come down and talk to you about many of these boards, some you may have no interest in, some you may not have the criteria or the credentials, but there are a tremendous amount of these commissions and committees that really need the voice of the people, and that will bring a different dimension to the discussion. So what we have, and we have a handout here, we can leave them out. I don't know if you've already stopped by our table, but this is the list of all the boards and commissions. And if you go to www.boston.gov and hit City Clerk's office, it will give you the entire list. Now, if you hit the square, if there is a vacancy in that commission, it will show you that. But on the other hand, if it is a commission that doesn't open up, that means that the board is a full board, you could still file your application, and we have copies of that also, that you would just say, I'd like to demonstrate an interest. Am I breaking things here? Yeah. An interest in this particular commission, and perhaps at some point in time, I might be able to be appointed to this board. So there is a process. It goes to the city council, and so many members have already been appointed. The mayor is very attentive to making sure that he has active, engaged members of all of these boards and commissions that are working for the people and the neighborhoods of Boston. So, there may be other questions or other aspects of this that you might be interested. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're delighted to be here today, and thank you so much for coming out and brightening everyone else's day. Thank you. And now it is my honor, truly, to introduce to you a dear friend. Chief Jerome Smith, who is one of the people responsible for really bringing city government to every member of our community. Chief Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And again, my name is Chief Jerome Smith, and I'm in charge of civic engagement for the city. And when the mayor created this cabinet in September of 2014, it had never been formed before, and it was kind of, let's figure out what we can actually do. And in my cabinet is the Office of Neighborhood Services, Boston 311, which is the 24-hour call center, Spark Boston, which works on issues for the population of 20 to 34-year-olds. I have the Elderly Commission, which handles our elderly population in the city. And I also have City Hall to Go truck and neighbor hubs. And so we kind of have this kind of front-facing platform on our cabinet where a lot of it is we do a lot of the intake for things that are going on in the city. And so what I really want to say, and one of my most exciting parts of the job was working with the City Council, with the Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, and also with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Advancement in the HHS Cabinet to work on the Language Access Ordinance. And when we say language access, it's not just spoken word, besides the fact that we translate it to 5 different languages and we're moving to that way, but it's also other technology to allow people to process information, but also to be heard. And more often than not, what we hear the mayor says is the strength and the vibrancy of Boston is our neighborhoods. And the only way to have strong, powerful neighborhoods is to make sure that every resident has the ability to approach the city, communicate with the city, ask for requests, and be treated fairly like every other resident in the city. And so these, while some people may say these are small incremental steps, these are major steps for individuals in the city who didn't have access before, who now have been opened up and have allowed to actually affect change in their community. So I'm excited, and anytime I get to partner with Councilor Wu and Councilor McCarthy, who wrote the Language Access Ordinance, for me, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, with everything else that goes on, I can sit down and you actually feel as though you've actually affected someone's life in a positive way. And so as far as my cabinet, again, we hear from all of you on many intake issues. I'd like to continue that, but also again, as we move to this more digital age of online town halls and other platforms to get residents to communicate more about what's going on in the neighborhoods, I want to work with all of you to make sure that we do it the right way and that we're not scrambling at the last minute to make some changes. And so again, I'm just happy to be here and celebrate this great day, and I look forward to working with all of you as we continue to make change in government in the future. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing our Interim Director of Intergovernmental Relations, Katie King, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see so many folks here in the room. So Commissioner McCosh asked me to speak to a very specific nuts and bolts issue, which is testifying at a hearing. So my role as Mayor's Director of Intergovernmental Relations is really to foster communication between the different levels of government here in the city, up at the State House, and in Congress. But let me ask a question. How many people here have testified at a hearing before? Counselors, put your hands down. Okay, and how many? So it's less than half, so this is hopefully some good advice. I will tell you a few things. So at any public hearing, either if it's out in the community, here in the council chamber, up at the State House, you have the opportunity to sign up and be heard. Some tips and advice for you. Limit your remarks, I'd say, to 3 minutes. You actually can be shocked in what you can get across in 3 minutes. But a few things. In those 3 minutes, make sure you say your name, where you live, and then the 2 most important things. What is the very concrete problem that you face? What are you experiencing? What's the challenge that is the topic of the hearing? And second, the last thing you need to say is, what do you need your elected officials to do for you? And the more specific you can be on that, the better. And because we have so many newbies in the room, I'd say a few things. You do not have to be an expert on what you're testifying on, whether it's a program or a policy. You do not need to know all the ins and outs of all of that. You are the expert of your own experience, and that's what city councilors, lawmakers need to hear from you. And I will also say, if you are thinking, I am never going to speak at a public hearing, that is not my comfort zone, fine. There are so many other ways to stay engaged. I know the mayor has so many staff, the council have fantastic staff who want to hear from you, either by phone, by email. And I will end where Jerome kind of started off. We have 311, which is the 24-hour call center. People think about that, about reporting potholes and lights that are out. You really can call that number. If you forget all of the other information thrown at you today, you can call that number and find out who is my city councilor, or what docket is being heard next week, or what's the mayor's position on a particular issue. That's that number is for you, and I will underscore that the mayor is very sincere and clear to all of his staff that we work for you, and we need to be responsive to your concerns and to your ideas. So with that, we'll find out who I have the honor of introducing. Oh, wonderful. It is my fantastic pleasure to introduce my colleague to speak more about elections, Commissioner Dion Irish.
Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone. First, I just want to say some quick thank you to Chief Arroyo for your leadership when I was in the Health and Human Services Cabinet, and also, for your friendship, and most importantly, for your commitment to public service. That's why we're all here, those of us in city government, and I'm proud to be a part of Mayor Walsh's administration that really strives hard to make sure that everyone gets included in Boston's success, and that's why you see the partnerships that we have here today. I want to say a special shout out to Commissioner McCosh and ask for a round of applause for her. She's been doing an excellent job ensuring that persons with disabilities are included in everything in the city of Boston, and elections included. I've had the pleasure of working with her recently on an accessibility ambassador training, which is a special training that we put together for poll workers so that on election day, they are as prepared as possible to serve voters with disabilities. They're familiar with the do's and the don'ts, as well as how to help folks use the equipment that's also available in all of our accessible polling places. Not only did we put that program together and that training for poll workers, but we also created a video that we're going to be using going forward for poll worker trainings so that we can make sure every poll worker gets the benefit of the same information. Today I want to talk a little bit about early voting. And Mayor Walsh is not here, but I want to thank Mayor Walsh because he mentioned that we were going to have 9 early voting sites, one in each city council district, but thanks to the generous funding that he's given the department, we turned that 9 into 27. Okay, so you're going to have 27 opportunities to vote early. We want it to be in each council district at least 3 times to be close or in every neighborhood of the city, in addition to having City Hall available during the entire period, which is October 24th to November 4th, for in-person early voting. We're also offering early voting by mail. And we're already accepting applications for early voting by mail. So we're very excited about that, and we're very much interested in also making sure that voters with disabilities know that absentee by mail or early voting by mail is not your only option. All of our early voting polling places will also be accessible, and we're hoping to have a good turnout from voters with disabilities, as well as we are looking for a good turnout from all of the voters in the city of Boston. Before you leave today, we have set up a sort of a mock polling place that's just outside the door that has our auto mark machine, one of our voting machines, and it also has information on early voting. So you can grab one of our flyers there that lists all the sites. But you can also expect to be inundated with information in the coming weeks. We're going to be doing mailings to all households. We're going to be doing advertising in the newspapers, as well as doing outreach to city partners and community partners and a variety of other efforts. So we also ask for your help and support in that as well. So with that said, I get the pleasure of introducing the person that I asked for a round of applause for, and she deserves it, and she deserves another one. So please, a round of applause as Commissioner McCosh takes over.
All right, thank you all to the wonderful speakers. elected representatives and also city staff, as everyone said, we work for you. So we're so glad that you came out, and I want to have a relationship with everyone in the disability community. I want you to feel comfortable reaching out to our office, anything we can do to support you and make a good life for people in Boston, whether they live here, visit here, or just want to come to City Hall and get to know, what services we offer. A few things I'd like to say about civic engagement. We've heard a lot about voting, and that's a wonderful thing. And we encourage everybody to register to vote, to go out and vote, to make the use of the services that we have for accessibility. But civic engagement is so much more than just voting. We heard earlier from Clerk Feeney about serving on boards and commissions. Even if you don't want to serve, City Hall has meetings almost on a nightly basis from the different departments and agencies and boards. So if you just want to learn more, so you can be a community advocate, or just so you're informed for yourself and your families, so you know what's going on in the city. Other than boards, we also have the City Council. We heard from Council President Wu, and she emphasized that you're welcome to testify. That's basically, it's a civic right that we all have to come and make our voices heard to the government. It's one of the oldest rights that exists in the country. So please take advantage of that. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking, just come listen. We do a weekly email newsletter that talks about everything that's going on in City Hall, from meetings, hearings, to where the City Hall truck to go is going to be each week. That goes out to the different neighborhoods. You can do things like pay your taxes, get information on the city, a lot of things that you can do at City Hall, you can do through the truck. So I hope everybody signed in today. If you didn't, please sign in before you go. But other than just the hearings, one thing about the City Council is that you each have a city councilor. Can I ask for a show of hands? How many people know who this city councilor is? Okay, a lot of you. That's good. How many of you have actually ever met your city councilor or representative? Much less. So that's a good thing. I'm glad you're here today. I know, right? Everyone knows Michelle. But now, even if you, you should get to know your representatives, because they're your representative in government. They can put your needs and your desires into action in the city. So part of this day was to bring you into City Hall so that you can see who your councilors are. And even if you can't meet them, you can meet their staff. And their staff, believe me, they bring the issues back to the councilors. They have it all down. They know that when constituents come in, they mean business. So please, civic engagement is so many more things. And just the fact that you all came out today is a huge step in getting involved in government. So with that, I wanted to open it up for questions, maybe for myself and for Commissioner Irish. Chief Arroyo is still here too. So if anyone wants to ask anything, please feel free. The floor is open. Sorry, oh, I'm sorry. Also wanted to acknowledge Councilor McCarthy has come. If you could give a shout out.
Anyone have any questions? I'm super excited about the early voting, but I just wasn't clear. So the 27 sites, is it certain days, certain times, or where can we find that out?
Yes, it is 27 different sites. There are 27 one-day sites, and City Hall is the 28th site and the main site, which will be open every day during the early voting period. City Hall will also be extended on 5 evenings to be open until 8 o'clock to provide early voting, in-person voting as well. But yeah, it is important to have the schedule. That's why we wanted to do a mail-in to each household so that you could see and decide which site makes most sense for you, because we have more times, more places. Yes, very important to note that you don't have to vote at the one closest to you. You can vote at any early voting site. Yes, so, and balanced, early voted ballots will be kept secure in the vault, and they'll be counted on election day. Most likely, they'll be counted here centrally, City Hall, possibly in the Ionella Chamber, and it will be publicly open to everyone, and perhaps parts of it could even be televised, but that's the way that the ballots will be counted for early voting.
Thank you. Commissioner McCosh also asked that I briefly discuss the accessibility improvements that have been happening in the Ionella Chamber. I know a lot of you walked through and took a tour. Sorry, didn't introduce myself. My name is Jessica Doonan. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Disability Commission. Work very closely with Commissioner McCosh. So just to go over a couple of the new exciting accessibility features, one of which is a new, very wonderful guardrail included ramp into the chamber. So now individuals who want to testify can go through the City Council offices and onto the floor to testify with everyone else. That's a newly installed ramp and is a great addition to the chamber. We also have TVs that are now in the chamber with open captioning. So any council hearing, it's live open caption, so you're able to see what everybody is saying during real time. It was also mentioned that there is a T-loop connection in the council as well, and automatic doors. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the new accessibility features. We also have 2 new ADA compliant restrooms that are on this floor as well, that are right by the elevators when you first came in. So those are the improvements for now, but I'm sure not the end of the improvements. We also have the new accessibility features that you guys, I'm sure many of you saw as you were heading into the City Hall with Government Center T-Station. So as you can see, it's bright and shiny and brand new and so nice with elevators. And we're really, really thrilled to have that new feature, making City Hall much more accessible and much closer to the residents. There's also a lovely new smooth access path that goes from the Government Center T-stop to City Hall as well, which we're very excited about. Any other questions? Great. Olivia?
Yeah, I have a question. What's the update on improving access around Beacon Hill and curb cuts? Are we still in court?
Actually, it is still in court, but it is heading towards a resolution. And we know that Mayor Walsh really had our back with this issue. When he was first elected, he came out fully in support of accessibility in Beacon Hill. So we hope to have it resolved for the construction season next year, where now it's the end of September and construction season closes in November. So it likely won't happen this year, but it is looking good for us. So we're hoping to move ahead next year. But thank everybody who came out for their advocacy, because getting around the streets is something that takes, and sidewalks, it takes up probably 50% of my job, because Boston is such an old city. We're a winter city, we're a hilly city, and we're a vertical city. So we have everything going against us in the built environment, but because of the forward thinking of our leaders, because of the support, because of your advocacy, the City Council really puts its money where its mouth is. They approve funding in their budget for all the work that we need to do for access. So stay tuned. We'll have updates for you moving forward. And if anyone wants to learn more, you can always come to our monthly Disability Commission meetings, which are held monthly in City Hall. And on that note, we have openings on the board. So if anyone wants to apply to be on our board, you do have to be a Boston resident, but you can send me an email with a letter of interest, and we'll be looking over applications in the next few months. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Have you resolved in this agreement the materials that are going to be used for that curb cut? Are we not going with granite, please?
No, it's going to be concrete with a red tactile warning.
The same ones that are in Councilor Wu's district, the South End?
Yes, South End, WA, Beacon Hill, Village.
Are considered the 4 historical districts.
Yep.
So
So they'll have concrete ramps with yellow tactile. Sorry.
Excellent.
And it's yellow later.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Councilor Wu for her district being really forward on that. I had no problem getting around the South End because you guys did the curb cuts.
And before we take more questions, I just want to recognize my other staff who are here. Jessica, as my chief of staff, is my right-hand woman. We have Patricia Mendez, who is our architectural access specialist. She's working really hard on the plan to bring city council chamber into full compliance. We have Sarah Leung. Is Sarah in the room? Oh, yeah, there she is. She's our architectural access coordinator. She works closely with Patricia. We have Ken Meyer, who is our receptionist and information and referral specialist. And Chris Morowski, he may still be at the information. Oh, he's here too. Great. And Chris does our outreach and advocacy. So I have a wonderful staff who supports me in everything I do. And, okay. And bidding farewell to Chief Arroyo, who is my biggest support in the city. So thank you for coming, Chief. Round of applause for the Chief before he goes. And do we have more questions?
I have a question. Are absentee ballots and early voting counted the same way as typical voting? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Are absentee ballots and early voting counted the same way as a typical vote on the day of the election?
The answer, yes, they are counted the same way as any other ballot. The only difference is where they get counted. Absentee ballots are sent out to the precincts and counted with all the other ballots for that precinct. Early voting ballots, we do have the option of counting them centrally or sending them out to their respective precincts.
So we need to wrap up in the next minute or two. If we have any final question, I'll take it. But other than that, we have about 20 minutes left where you can go visit your council offices, make sure you sign in. We're giving away t-shirts. We still have refreshments. So any final question before we break up? What's that? Oh, and register to vote? Try out the Automark.
Practice to vote.
What is it?
Practicing voting.
Oh, practice voting, yes. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. And we